My name is Sam Feifel. I'm our publications director at the IAPP. Thank you all for being here. I just wanted to introduce our next panel. It's something that we're very excited about. Rebecca Richards is the new CLPO at the NSA, an organization maybe you've heard about. They've been in the news a little bit lately. And she has been a long, long time member and supporter of the IAPP. And we're really thrilled that she chose to come and make her first speaking appearance with us here at the summit. And thank you guys all for coming to see that. I also want to thank Danny Weitzner. He is the most recent recipient of our Privacy Leadership Award. He has worked in the White House. He's now at MIT, and really one of the first people that both Becky and I thought of when we were looking to set this conversation up. So appreciate you all being here. I just wanted to say thank you before you guys get started for doing this. We really appreciate it. I'm going to let them take it from here.
Thank you, Sam. Welcome, Becky. So this is a great opportunity for me because Becky is a really old friend. We realized that we met in 2000 on the Platform for Privacy Preferences Working Group. Becky just informed me that she wrote the P3P policy for trustee. She went on to be one of the first hires at the new DHS privacy office. She had an extraordinary run there. She's really well known to all of you. She's part of the leadership of the IAPP, helping with the government CIPP certification development. She got tremendous accolades when she was announced for this position. Becky's been just such an expert and a serious focused worker. I'm very excited that she's now in a leadership position, a principal, as we would say, in the government. And I'm very lucky to be here because I haven't actually had a chance to talk with Becky about what her new job is like and what it's about. So that's what we're going to do here, right in front of a few of our friends. So what are you doing?
Loaded question. So some of you may know, back in August, the president announced that it was time to create a new leadership position at NSA, the Civil Liberties and Privacy Officer position. And after quite a bit of thought, I threw my hat in and was honored to be chosen, and I started, and this is week 5. So it's been drinking from a fire hose. And a lot of people have had a lot of thoughts of, what is it you're doing? And why are you, that's a crazy job for you to take. But it's actually really exciting. It's a real opportunity. NSA is in a place where it's time to think about what we can do to make some shifts in what they're doing, but also to help them learn to speak and tell their own story. This is an agency that's known as no such agency. They haven't had to speak. They're your intelligence folks. You don't want them to talk. And so this is them learning how to talk about all of the things that they do as it relates to compliance in a way that people understand outside of that building.
So you've been a privacy officer in government practically since the beginning of that being a thing that anyone could do. I'm just curious, what do you think is going to be special, especially interesting, especially challenging, different about being in an intelligence agency? Of course, you had intelligence functions in DHS, but as you say, you're now really in the belly of the beast. What do you think is going to be different about it?
Well, so transparency is definitely going to be different. You don't want your adversaries to know what you're doing in that intelligence when you're doing national security work. There are real threats. People have talked about those real threats. So we need to protect what we're doing. But we also need to be more transparent. So I think a lot of my job will be translating from NSA speak to public speak and beginning to explain in a little bit clearer way what are the protections that are in place, what are we doing, why are we doing that? And it's been interesting. I've gotten a lot of PowerPoint presentations so far, and I've gotten a lot of legal court orders. There's not a lot of plain English.
Some of us have seen some of those kind of presentations in
Yeah.
corridors, actually. Maybe not the ones you've seen.
But you know, there's a need to actually be able to talk about things. So one of the things we really did at DHS was what I termed the grandmother test. Can you write a privacy impact assessment that your grandmother understands? I'm not sure our PIAs always met that standard, but it was definitely the goal. And people began to understand, like, what is it you're doing? And I think that's a lot of what we want to think about for NSA. And they're all learning to speak. And, you know, they have spent their entire career not going home, not talking to people about what they do, not, you know, but also really internalizing. I was really surprised, I don't know if surprised, but all of their literature, pre-media leaks, still talks about privacy. These people have it in their veins that they are protecting privacy, that they are protecting US persons, but they have never had to talk about it. And so that's a really...
So I'm curious, you've been there obviously not such a long time, but you've probably talked to a lot of people. What can you tell us about what the mood is since the Snowden revelations? Are people, are they pissed off? Are they depressed? Do they feel misunderstood? Do they feel angry? Where if you could, I don't expect you to generalize, but it'd be interesting to have some sense of, it's a large number of people. They've got obviously a strong mission-driven ethos. Where are they now? Now that the spotlight is on them, fairly or otherwise?
Probably all of those emotions in some way, shape, or form. But what I have been struck by is this is an organization that is very compliant. So they have a set of rules and they have a very strong culture of compliance. And so they look at what is and said, you know, these are the rules that were set forward by the court, by the AG, and we have followed those. And so to have people come in and say, this is, you know, what you're doing is horrible, I think is hard for them to hear because they don't even, people, you know, they're doing this every day, day in and day out. And in their blood is protection of your privacy. They talk about it. Every single person from, you know, the people down, you know, all, up and down the scale talk about them protecting privacy. What my goal is to help translate that so that the public can understand that, but then also to look at things and understand that technology has changed. So let's think about technology in the 80s. We were probably on a closed network looking at what the Russians are doing and listening to what the Russians are doing. And there's not a lot of US person, if any. It's a closed network you're directing at. Today, Osama bin Laden's emails were passing in the same one that you, my mother, all of our emails going through. So those are changes in technology that mean that the privacy and civil liberties concerns are different.
So I'm curious on that front, you know, one of the other ways that Becky and I have worked together is when I was helping to put together the Consumer Privacy Bill of Rights, the updated FIPS principles, frankly, the best source of expertise that I had to draw on were the chief privacy officers and the privacy officers in the government, and including very significantly Becky. And do you think that is the NSA staff going to get into the act? Do you think or what do you think you're going to be able to learn from the NSA staff about how to address these questions?
I think there's a lot that I have to learn about what NSA does, and there's a lot for NSA to learn about what it means to build privacy and civil liberties into the process. And so what I want to think, what I'm working with, and a lot of what I'm doing right now is listening internally and learning what they do, and then understanding how we can put assessments in, how we can do a better job demonstrating that we have thought about privacy, and begin to have some of those conversations. Externally, I am starting to reach out to advocates, to people in this room. I want to hear what some of your concerns are about what NSA is doing, help understand whether there is a disagreement on the facts of what we're doing or if it's a misunderstanding, and begin to build some of that bridge. So I've started reaching out to the advocacy community to do a listening tour. I was up at Congress this week and last week, again, sort of understanding where is the disconnect. Is the disconnect on substance, or is the disconnect on you know, the way we've described or not described because transparency is not what NSA has done as well heretofore.
So now that you've managed the fire hose in your first couple of weeks, what do you think is your kind of medium term, like the next couple of months? What are you going to come back and tell, I don't know, whatever June meeting IAPP has? There's got to be at least many of them.
So what we're doing is going through and understanding what NSA does. And we're taking a couple of different approaches to identify sort of what are the existing protections we have in place. So NSA, as I've come to learn, has a number of different authorities by which we collect. And because of the Privacy and Civil Liberties Oversight Board and just sort of walking right in, I'm beginning to learn what those are. And so what we've started to do is sort of what I call a baseline activity report that says, here are all the protections we have in place if we've collected you under FISA. Here's the protection we have if we did it under, 215, which is the Business Records Program. Or here's, there's a number of different numbers, or under Executive Order 12333. So I want to look at it that way, but then at a separate way is to look at it and understand, how do we do collections? So heretofore, it's been a lot of, how do I look at it? I'm a U.S. person, I am in U.S. When can NSA collect on you? I am a person in Germany who is a German. When can I collect? And begin to look at it from the individual's perspective to understand where and how we're doing some of those collections. And so we're sort of taking a look at it, a couple of different approaches, and then using the fair information practice principles to begin to analyze and identify what the best way is to look at it going forward.
And what about the long run? When will you decide you've accomplished your mission and you can leave? How will you know?
Everybody will think we have the best privacy program in the world. I think the long term is to really build privacy into build the concept of the assessments into the core of what NSA does, and understand that when a new technology comes along, that there is a conversation that's had that says, I can do it A or I can do it B. Well, A is very privacy invasive, B is not, I still get the mission. We should go with B and have that be part of that conversation. I think that we've done a pretty good job with that at Homeland Security over time so that people have that assessment in place, and that would be that it becomes just part of what they do.
So one would be tempted to ask, based on the headlines announcing your arrival, NSA gets Privacy and Civil Liberties Officer. It's as if there was no one or nothing or no consideration about this set of issues before you got there. Did you arrive and find a wasteland, or what did you find? And I also
No, actually, I was really impressed. They actually did PIAs, and so there was a privacy program that is happening down in the polish shop, and then OGC actually had a civil liberties shop, and they were doing a really quite impressive data mining report that nobody would ever see because it's classified. No, they did have both of those functions, and they were happening. When you think about NSA, privacy there for them was privacy about their employees, about contractors, about the average person walking down the street. It was not as concentrated on, this is the big collection that we're getting through these means. And so what this job does is it brings it up. I'm a direct report to the director of NSA, and and it just is a focal point to bring all of those. And I walked in the building and people were already asking questions. So they were sort of waiting for me, and we're like, here, can you respond to this? And what do you think of this? And week 2, the P Club showed up. So there's been no lack of work.
And I know I've actually had the chance over the last 6 months to get to know your colleague, John DeLong, who's the Director of Compliance. He's actually been part of the NSA outreach effort as far as I can see it. He's been up at a couple of workshops that we've held at MIT, and it's been great to have his perspective. The first time he came, and actually I think the second time he came, I asked him, I said, well, I'm really glad you're coming. Can I list you on the agenda? He said, yeah. And I said, can I list your agents? He said, yeah. And this was a little surprising to me. So some groundwork has been laid for
Yes.
your transparency initiative. So how are you going to relate to the compliance organization?
So John and I are in each other's office every day. We're co-equals. Both of us report directly to the director. He is D4 and I am D5. Who knew? Numbers and Ds. Really, when we think about this, I think of my role as being on the front end. So we have legal asking, can you do this? And I think that the privacy and civil liberties job will be to ask, should we do this? And if we should, how should we do it to reduce the amount of privacy and civil liberties impact? John and his team's role is then to say, okay, we have these rules in place, let's make sure that we're compliant with those rules. And he's done an absolutely fantastic job, so there's no question they're complying with those rules. Part of my job is to help influence what those rules are and identify places that we can reduce the risks to privacy and civil liberties and identify different ways to mitigate those.
So what should I have asked you that I didn't? I got it all.
You got it all.
All right. Thank you so much.
Okay,
Good
thank
luck
you.
and congratulations. We'll look forward to having you back. Thank you all.